How does daily analysis boost my trading success and how it could boost yours? Well, let me just first tell you that I refresh my charts couple times a day, okay? Because new data is constantly coming in, and what we're looking at here is just a snapshot of what the data is so far. But of course, it is subject to change, right? Any breakouts, fake outs, breakdowns that could change the overall picture of the charts. That's why it's very important to learn how to chart and be able to refresh the chart yourself and see this market independently for yourself because data is constantly coming in, right? And if you're just trading on a snapshot, that is not going to be good, especially when there are changes happening constantly. Now, that's why I emphasize learning technical analysis and just charting some of these very common patterns that are very easy to get started with, right? At least you can see, where the overall market is doing or going, at least on a higher time frame. I think that's at least very important. Now, we're also going to be talking about some altcoins later in this video, usually after the 10-minute mark, which would include let me go back to our list here. I always forget the altcoins that we are going to be talking about. So we're going to be talking about Telcoin, which is TEL. Also going to be talking about Stronghold, which is SHX, and Verasity, VRA, and see what's happening in these markets since the last time I've talked about them. Are there any updates in their price targets, trading patterns since the last time? Okay, so if you want to skip through, you can after the 10-minute mark, but I highly don't recommend it because Bitcoin is still the driver of this market. I'm going to get into Bitcoin in detail, and I don't trade altcoins without a clear understanding of what happens with Bitcoin because you're going to get heavily blindsided if you do. If Bitcoin continues this pump, that's going to be very good for the altcoins. However, if it dumps from here, that's going to drag the altcoins down. Now, we're also going to get into some major crypto news here, so let's go ahead and dive into some headlines first before getting into the charts. This one is by News BTC. Ethereum price breaks towards $5,000. Analyst reviews when to sell everything and why. Well, I think selling everything, I think in my opinion here is, I think we're still kind of far from that, given that Bitcoin holds that 110K support, right? Because that was basically the start of the bull cycle here for Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto markets. We also have a rate cut coming up in September, which is huge. We haven't had a rate cut this year, and I think that is going to fuel this bull cycle as we have seen in 2021, right? Um, so I think we have quite a bit of bullish things happening. Of course, Bitcoin breaking through that 110K, and now it's retesting that all-time high area at about 120-ish K, right? Just last night. So I think something big is about to happen right now. I am long on Bitcoin. I am long on quite a bit of the altcoins here. So my opinion on this market is still bullish. But I'll tell you guys when I change my opinion, because as a trader in this market, I am looking at both sides of the trade here. I am not permanently bullish or bearish. I look for opportunities and argument on both sides. But yes, going back to this piece here, Ethereum is gonna break towards $5,000. I am seeing something really different happening with Ethereum, which is good because that means money is flowing into the market, not just Bitcoin. It's flowing into Ethereum. It's flowing into altcoins, as I pointed out a technical pattern to you guys on Total 3. All right, next piece here is going to be by ZY Crypto. Musk Grok AI issues bold $175,000 Bitcoin prediction as Trump administration favors crypto. I mean, I really don't think $175,000 Bitcoin is really that bold. Just looking at the monthly RSI reading, I don't think we're anywhere near a blow off top yet or a bull cycle peak. And we're already at 120K. I mean, I really don't think that is far away, and that's going to be very possible for Bitcoin to hit. Of course, these are just my opinions and not financial advice, right? You got to do your own research. All right, next one here is going to be by the block. Michael Saylor's strategy buys another 155 Bitcoin for $18 million to near 3% of Bitcoin's total supply. That's pretty scary. You know, I think without getting into too much context here of the news, if strategy actually owns 3% of Bitcoin supply, and if they start dumping on this market, I think that's a pretty. I mean that's going to be pretty heavy. I mean, unless they're just holding with their positions, that I'm not too worried about it. But if if they actually start selling off, that's going to be pretty scary. That one institution or organization owns that much Bitcoin. All right. Next one here is going to be by Cointelegraph. Ethereum bag holders will rotate back to Bitcoin. Samsung Mo. I do agree with that because we have been seeing Ethereum just catching fire for the past couple of days or even past a week or two. Just catching up to Bitcoin because Bitcoin has already broken through its all time highs, and I mean, altcoins have been lagging behind, but Ethereum has been catching up. Total 3 is almost there, almost about to break its previous all-time high from 2021. That's why I think this altcoin season is just getting started. It is about to get crazy. So very important to be paying attention to the charts right now. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. So let's go ahead and go to the next piece here, which is Crypto Potato. By Crypto Potato, Bitcoin's momentum slows after hitting a recent record high. Um, I mean, I really just think it's consolidating. Okay, I don't think it's really slowing, but I think it's consolidating. We don't really have that much resistance at about that 123K level. So I mean, I think this week is going to be big. I think there's a very high chance that Bitcoin breaks through, right? Soon. Okay. So that is basically what I'm seeing and what I'm betting on. So yeah. Very important to be paying attention to that Bitcoin pattern right now as well. It could be forming some type of a cup and handle pattern, right? At about that 123K resistance. All right, let's come back here to the charts. This is the Bitcoin chart, weekly time frame. Very important for Bitcoin to very important to be paying attention to Bitcoin this week here, because even though it looks pretty bullish right now, there are still some mixed signals. I pointed it out on the monthly time frame. Right, there is bearish divergence. On this weekly time frame, there is still bearish divergence. Okay, comparing to last week's candle close with this previous peak here, we have a lower high on the RSI. However, I have seen bearish divergences on the higher time frame, like monthly and weekly, get invalidated, especially when there is a big breakout happening. So could this be it? So I think it's make or break time for Bitcoin. I'm just saying it has happened before. I'm not saying that it's going to be 100% that it's going to invalidate that bearish signal, but it's happened before. Uh, Most recently, back in November last year on the weekly time frame, December 2020 on the monthly time frame, October 2017 on the monthly time frame, right? So that is basically what I'm seeing here for Bitcoin. Let's come down here to the daily time frame, right? Where I have pointed out a falling wedge pattern, right, which usually breaks to the upside, and it did. Price target for this breakout here, it's almost 125K, right? Price targets are estimates only, and there could be more or less, right? Very much depends on the market. So just because it breaks out, it doesn't mean that it's gonna 100% go to that price target. But there could be more, right? But I have also seen flops that happen, go short of its price target and come back down. So just got to take into consideration of all types of scenarios. So this is basically what I'm seeing, but right now Bitcoin is above all moving averages, which is a good sign, right? So very important to be paying attention to this right now. Let's go ahead and take a look into altcoins. Okay, we're gonna be taking a look into um, Telcoin and see what's happening in here. Telcoin. Since the last time we've talked about it. All right. Since the last time we've talked about it, I mentioned that there was a falling wedge pattern. It's gonna be the most important pattern, most common pattern you guys will see if you guys start charting these candles. And you can find your own opportunities this way, right? Without someone charting it for you, which is gonna be very helpful if you're planning to stay in this trading game in the long run. Now, falling wedge pattern, 3-day time frame. Okay. Price target broke out. Price target would be about 1.2 cents for Telcoin. Now, since it broke out, it has been just consolidating and actually went down for a little bit as well. But this breakout is still valid because technically this is still above the upper trend line of this falling wedge pattern it broke out of. So since it broke out, it hasn't really been doing too much. But let's take a look into. So that price target is still valid, 1.2 cents, which is still a pretty significant move for Telcoin here. Let's take a look into a smaller time frame. I don't see anything particular happening on a smaller time frame here. Yeah, I don't see anything happening here on the smaller time frame. So that's basically what I'm looking at. Nothing too much happening for Telcoin. Let's see if we can take a look into any support and resistances Telcoin has broken through. It has broken through the daily 200 SMA, which is the orange line, very important to stay above that as support, about 0.58 cents, right? That is the daily time frame. So it's something to be paying attention to if it could stay above that support level. Let's take a look into Stronghold SHX and see what's happening in here. Weekly time frame. You guys can see that Stronghold is trying to break its all-time highs here at about that 3 cents level. Okay. Now, I know some of you guys have brought up the idea to me that this is going to get listed on certain exchanges. Now, I want to be completely honest with you that, you know, what I pay attention to and what I focus on is mainly on the charts. I don't really know the backstory of each of these coins, and that's completely fine with me because I trade mainly on these charts. Some macro factors can come into play, like the Fed rate cut percentage, but I trade mainly on the charts. So if you guys ask me anything else, I'm sorry, I don't really know. What I'm telling you here is what I focus on. Now, daily time frame. Okay, for SHX, it broke out of this falling wedge pattern. It's been working like a charm. Okay, price target for this falling wedge pattern was about 2.5 cents. It basically reached there before getting consolidation right here. Now, what I'm looking at for SHX here is that there is some divergence signals, which is basically where you get a higher or equal high on the price action chart, but you get an equal or lower high on the RSI. Basically, usually indicates a pullback, right? That's bearish divergence. What I'm looking at here is a possible pullback first to about 2.2 cents, whereas the daily 21 SMA is at. That's the next level of support that it could bounce off of, but it's already bounced off of it one time already, so I don't expect it to be pretty strong support. The next real level is potentially at about 2 point, actually about 2 point, almost 2.2 cents there on the 3-day time frame, because there is also bearish divergence on the 3-day time frame. So it could potentially take a dip back down to about 2.2 cents or 2.15 cents. Hope I'm reading those decimals correctly. Okay, so that's basically what I'm looking at as the next key support. Because there's divergence happening on the daily and the 3-day time frame that I'm seeing right now. All right, let's go ahead and go to Verasity, see what's happening in this market. Actually, I also want to mention that for SHX, that if it comes back up to retest 3 cents here, this could still potentially form some type of a cup and handle pattern. Still too early to say, but it could potentially happen if we still see higher lows here on the 3-day time frame, right? Because higher lows form rounded bottoms, and rounded bottoms usually form cup and handles, which is still a bullish pattern. But still too early to say. We can come back here and update the charts if enough of you guys want to see SHX. Let's go to the next one here, which is Verasity VRA, and see what's happening in this coin. Now, on the weekly time frame, I pointed out that there was a huge falling wedge pattern. Like I said, the most common theme here after an extensive downtrend. Okay, so price target for the breakout of this pattern would be about 1.5 cents for Veracity, which is huge. That's about a 10x. Okay, but also got to take it with a grain of salt because price targets are estimates only. Very much depends on what happens with Bitcoin. Now let's come on over here to the daily time frame. Okay, where it looks like Veracity has been trying to break out of this falling wedge pattern, which could be significant. It's trying to hold on top of the top trend line there, as well as the daily 21 SMA as support right now. Now, I did mention that there was a smaller falling wedge before the breakout of this bigger falling wedge pattern, but that got invalidated. Okay, it basically broke down to the downside, and we had to invalidate that initial falling wedge pattern and rechart it, which gives us another falling wedge pattern here, okay, which usually breaks to the upside. And it did. Okay, price target for this one would be about 0.19 cents price target Veracity. Let's see if it can reach that price target before heading towards that bigger one there at about 1.5 cents. Quite a bit of resistance along the way right now, which includes the daily 200 SMA, the orange line here in this time frame. So some things to be paying attention to. This basically wraps up for this video for today. If you guys want to see any more of Telcoin, Stronghold, Veracity, make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, and I will bring you guys an update if enough of you guys want to see it. Or let me know if you guys want to see any other coins in this market.